Hi, welcome to CodeSpace video. In this tutorial, we will see how to create a simple chat box using Angular 5. So, I will be briefly describing how to generate and integrate Angular service, make a REST API backend call to the server, and for UI, we will use Angular Material. Why we use Angular Material? Because it gives the same look and feel of Android application like Gmail, Google Drive, and it is easy to convert such project to Android or any iOS application. So we'll create a simple chat box like this. So if I type in any message here, and send it, you can see the message appears here, name, hello Goro, and the timestamp. And the same message, if I give from Goro and send it, we can see that it subsequently gets appended here. If we refresh the page, that message is going to stay. We used a dummy Node.js server in the backend. I didn't use any database like MongoDB or RDS. I simply stored this data in memory of that Node.js server. So we'll now go and create the application. So in our previous video, we have seen how we can start with AngularJS project and how we generate a component and use the routing modules. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then surely do it for upcoming sessions. Now we'll go and create a component home. And we'll generate a service inside the same component. So I will use ng generate service. And since I will give it inside that home folder, so I'll give home/home. So service name will be home. So here you can see that to generate a service called home.service.ts. So why we use services? We use services so that we can perform any business operations, like if we want any calculator to perform the calculations like add or subtract or delete or multiply. So we do it in that service layer. So here we will see how to integrate the REST API calls in service layer. So we will be talking to our backend and we'll be integrating the same part in this home.service.ts. After that, we'll go and integrate Angular Material. So for that, we'll give npm install --- save @Angular Material and @Angular CDK. After that, we'll go and install other dependencies like animations and hammer.js. In the meantime, I'll go and include material icons in index.html. And in style.css, I'll give a default theme. So I'll use deep purple amber CSS. And I'll save both the files. So after the Angular material dependencies got installed, we need to go and update appmodule.ts. I have already updated it, so I will just briefly describe what I have changed. So I have imported HTTP modules and form modules. HTTP modules basically I imported so that we can call the REST APIs. Form modules I have included because we can use ng for ngIf in our fields. Also I have included mat button modules, mat checkbox modules, mat menu modules, and all the mat modules so that we can use the syntax of Angular material. And we have imported all this here. Also I have imported flex layout modules. We can just install it using npm I Angular flex layout and we can import it and add it here. Also I have updated the app component.html. So in app component.html, that mat toolbar actually serves as my header. So the left part comes the code space and example spacer is the gap in the between, and after that www.youtube.com code space on the right side of the header it comes. So in order to separate using example spacer, I gave this inside app component.css. So here you can see I have used the flex and example icon, and in routing module.ts I have just included that home component and I have given all path to home component. Now I'll go and edit that home component. So I have updated that home component.html. So in that header I have given chat box and I have used the mat form field for input and mat form field for text area. So this one is basically the input of that name and this one is basically the input of the message. So I have used two-way binding. So if you give like square box, the normal bracket and the name, so it will be as a two-way binding. If you want to perform one-way binding, then you just need to remove ones. So this is like from component to that JavaScript or the TS file, the binding will happen. And if we just remove it and give like this, so this is from the service layer to the component layer HTML, the binding is happening. So I'll just keep it as a two-way binding. You just save it and run the application. So my application is already running. I'll just go and open it in Chrome browser. So in the browser you can see that the header got created and the body is broken. So you just go and fix it using CSS. Now you can see that it got fixed. So this look and feel comes from Angular material. Now we'll go and integrate the service layer. So I updated the code in homeservice.ts. So here we just need to include HTTP response header and the request option from Angular HTTP and for RxJS operation to promise. So after importing both this, I have included two methods, get message and send message. The get message is basically call this URL and get the response. The same URL is being used to send the response using post method. So I'll just save it. And in order to call this, I'll call this from home component.ts. So in home component.ts, we just need to import our home service in order to invoke the service layer. And we will give the name and the message that we gave in home component.html for two-way binding. This is the name and the message for two-way binding. And this is the data source that will be populating what are the message has been posted by any user. So ng onInit will be called every time we initialize this page. So on ng init, I'll just go and check what are the messages got posted earlier and we'll just fetch it. So I'll give an interval of like 500 milliseconds to check to fetch the data. And to send the data, I'll just use this send and I will call home service.send message. So send message is basically that post method which saves the message. So I'll just go and save it. But since we don't have any backend, so I'll just go and write one backend. So in order to start the backend, we just need to go and install few things. So we'll just install npm install --save and we just need to give flat cache. So flat cache I have used in order to just to ignore the MongoDB or RDS storage. So it will just catch and put it in memory of that Node.js application. Then we'll just install Restify and Restify cross midware. I'll briefly introduce it till you get installed. So here I have used Restify and for cross browser I have used cross midware and for cache I have used flat cache. So you can just go through the code. Then I have given origin to allow from any of the browser. So I have two APIs, basically three APIs, one to just to check health if this API is alive or not, and one for posting the message. So I have used server.post, then API v1 message. So here we receive all the message and store it in the cache. So I used cache.get cache if it's available. Then set the key, like messages, what are the messages are available, and server.get API v1 messages to pull all of the messages. So I just return cache.all, so it returns all the messages and it is listening on the port 8080. We'll just go and run the server. So you can see the server is running fine. Now I will go and update home component.html so that we can view what other data has been posted. Go and just save it. And we'll try to send one data. Now I'll send a message. So we can see that Paul Highsmith has been posted. Now we'll go and post another message from another user. So you can see that from Gaurav, hello everyone has been posted and the timestamp has been reflecting. So I'll briefly describe what I did in HTML file. So we used ngIf and ngFor. So ngIf will look if the data source is having length of more than 0, then it will render all this into the DOM, and ngFor will just loop for this data source. So data source is basically an array of JSON objects, and so JSON objects will be stored in data, and using this data.name we can access the JSON object. So this data source is present in home component.ts, and basically we need to initialize it using blank array so that it doesn't throw any error. And every time on initializing this page, it will go and look into the home service.get messages, and it will fetch the data and assign it to data source. And in home component.html we can see that we have given one-way binding, click, send, name and message. So if I go and check in send, so on click this function has been called, and this function internally calls the home service and message, and it passes name and message, and the message has been saved in the database or in the backend. That's all for this video. If you like this video, then don't forget to hit the thumbs button. If you have any questions, then you can just write in the comment below. Thanks for watching this video.